hi, my name is Baruch. I wake men to live fully their lives, with joy and love. And the last part is a very accurate adding to my purpose statement after this workshop with Tim Kelly. Hi.
Hey.
How are you doing?
Good.
I know Tim Kelly more than a year and a half, a year and a half from the last workshop, and I know online for a few years. Team leaders to find and work from their purpose, right? Was that correct?
Yeah.
Sure. And I had this opportunity to have another workshop today. Just now we finished, and we jumped on this spot and said, yeah, let's do another interview. And the last time I interviewed Tim was a year and a half ago, right after the workshop last time. And it was right after I had this jump, a leap in my purpose. And I wanted to be more accurate with my inner connection to the things that I do. And then I went to a workshop and I got very accurate tool to work with my inner source and to have this dialogue that leads me to the decisions of what I do and what I don't do and what is accurate for me. And today I can because I'm going through another phase of change, and I really like it. A few years ago I really was afraid from all this little death, I call it. And something that I do and the whole identity do things, and I do this work in life, and suddenly I feel that the lack of enthusiasm and passion, and it wasn't meaningful anymore to do it, and the things that I used to do. Even men that come to my men workshops, have these phases that there are lack of passion. Yep. They do things and again, that's it.
It's a sign that it's ready for things to change.
Exactly. Yep. But this time, almost 42, and a couple of months, it's like the ground is shaking, and I feel that it's a deep change. Like all my identity is changing. And I put this question to you, and let's talk about this period of time when everything in life is almost the same, but the inner self is changing. The inner look of life is changing. You feel like of not passion, or not connected to the things you do, or your lack of satisfaction of the things you have in life. You know, your woman, career, and so on.
Well, there's different versions of it. So the one you were experiencing previously, I think, and you can correct me because it's your life, is a different type of transformation. Those same symptoms could come from different things. So that earlier one was needing to make your purpose more accurate, needing to be more precise about what you're doing. And that often happens for men in particular, but for anybody in their mid-30s to mid-40s, where they're less driven by achievement and more driven by fulfillment and meaning. And so then now they start to feel or hear this call that there's something more they're supposed to do. But I don't think that's the transformation you're going through now. No. Because you've had your purpose this whole time, and it's evolving. But this one was something different. This is an identity shift, something much deeper going on. That in my experience, it's actually, at least sometimes, a side effect of living your purpose. So I think it may be that living your purpose for the last year and a half is, at least in part, the cause of the transformation you're going through now, if that makes sense. So I encouraged you to ask about the transformation. What did you learn?
Yeah, when I talked to my source, my inner source, I got an answer that I really felt it, like the last couple of months. And for me, it was a big change. I'm going through a transformation of my earlier consciousness of development through difficulty and pain and lack, poverty, these kind of things. And it really goes with my life because my walking through the path of my purpose wasn't a year and a half ago. It was 18 years ago when I chose, and because of death very close to myself. My sister died 18 years ago. Just last week was Purim. It's the 18th Memorial Day, and then I made a choice to live my life fully. If we like the death is all around us, makes a question.
Never know when it's coming for you.
So how are we going to live this moment now? And this question gave me a lot of answers that helped me choose the life and my professional life, my personal life, and I took it very seriously. You know, it's like very decision. It made me go explore and explore and go out and learn from teachers and do myself. And all these years I'm going through, I led development procedures with men, personally or groups, and I was going through my involvement and development and led them to do their development.
Right.
I took it very seriously. It was like almost like a decision of life and death. If I do it or not. If I live fully or not. And I think last couple of months I'm going through letting go of things that are not relevant anymore. And I felt exactly that all the things that going through development through difficulty and pain or death, or I need to take it very seriously, and it changes to develop through joy and happiness and excitement and choice of freedom, not because I have something lacking or just because I want to do it or want to choose it or I choose it.
Good.
It's great.
This is a big transformation. Now, this is presumably some of your audience will resonate with this. Almost everyone starts doing self-development work because they feel there's something wrong with them. That there's something missing or something broken or something wounded that they want to fix or change or heal or replace or something. But it's not okay the way it is and I have to fix it. Okay? And that's a fine motivation. It worked for me, worked for you, probably worked for a bunch of you. Right? That gets you into that workshop, gets you spending the money and the time and the effort. And it gets you to do it repetitively, right? Because it's a path, right? It's something that just doesn't happen and you're done, check, right? So you have to be on it for a while. Hopefully, there comes a point where the person goes through what you went through, which is shifting from being driven by a sense of brokenness or lack or something like that, to saying, no, actually, you know what? I'm fine. Everything, in fact, the world is fine. You know what? It's all fine. In fact, maybe it's even perfect. Maybe I'm perfect. Maybe I'm perfect exactly as I am.
And I receive and accept the incomplete. I think that's the mature thing.
Good. The thing is that now it becomes optional. Now it becomes recreation, a sport, an art project, right? Which is, and I love the way Ram Dass put this, great spiritual teacher, actually a Jewish guy from Brooklyn. Richard Albert, but Ram Dass.
You always find the Jewish connection, you always find it.
He says, everything is perfect exactly the way it is, including my desire to change it. That my desire to evolve is part of what's perfect about me. So in my list of conditions, you know what those are, I don't want to get into a big explanation, but my commitments to myself, one of them is I'm perfect as I am. And another one is that I joyfully make unnecessary upgrades to myself. Why? Because it's fun! What else would I do? Right? It's sort of like you have a car, it runs fine, but you think, ooh, what if I put on better tires, right? Or I replace the exhaust channel with something that, get me more horsepower or something like that. Unnecessary upgrades.
That's fine.
Right? Like elective surgery, So if you take your growth and development as unnecessary but enjoyable, then you're no longer a problem to be solved. You're an art project in process. Right? And that takes a lot of the sting and the urgency and the sort of, there's kind of a downer, compressed energy, a feeling of not being enough, and if you don't fix it, whatever it is, then that's very, you failed at life.
Purpose.
Exactly, right? Or if you found it now, if you don't manifest it, you're dying, your life will have meant nothing. So it gets out of that pressed down state into something a lot more fun and joyous. Now related to this, but not exactly the same thing, and this may be going on as well, is that a lot of the motivation for life in general, not just for growth and development, comes from wounds, comes from painful emotional experiences. I like your sister dying on Purim, for example. But often, I mean, that was when you were older, right? Often these things are very young. They could be when you're 2 or 5 or 8 or something like that. And it could be something dramatic, like getting wounded or raped or your parent dying or leaving or something like that. It also could be very simple. Like you came home with some art project from school and your mom was like dismissive of it or something like that, and you felt like, oh my God, this beauty of my soul has been rejected, you know. So it could be a point in time, it could be a pattern, a lot of different ways it can happen. There's some kind of emotional trauma that almost everyone experiences that motivates them to want to control reality so that it won't happen again. And that motivation carries on into adulthood. And people don't realize it, it's very unconscious. But that many of the decisions, perhaps even most of the decisions that are being made, are rooted in this desire not to have to feel a very particular thing related to a very particular event.
Right.
And that keeps playing out over and over and over again. And of course, life will keep offering you opportunities to feel it. And you keep rejecting them, right? But that keeps you moving, right? It keeps you active. It keeps you engaged in trying to prevent this thing from ever happening again.
And what happens is that your freedom goes smaller and smaller and smaller, because you don't free to do whatever you want.
That's right.
You're free to do whatever you don't want to.
You're free to do anything that won't cause this to happen again. So you're constantly moving away from something. And it's a strong term, but it's actually a form of slavery. Like, if you don't know that's going on, you think you have free will. But if you understood what was really going on, you'd see that you actually don't. And that your choices are very narrow, within a limited scope of what the parts of you that are trying to prevent further wounding will allow. And one of the things that happens when people get to middle age, if they do enough work on themselves, is that wound expires. That form of motivation ceases to be motivating, ceases to be fulfilling. And the person starts to feel like, why am I doing this? Why is this, you know? And it's not necessarily at the same time that they find their purpose. It could be a separate event, and I think that's what's happened for you. The purpose could come first, and now I found my purpose and then did my purpose in a wound-driven way for like 10 years. And then I was like, wait a minute, I'm doing my purpose in a wound-driven way. Something's wrong here.
Can you give an example for that?
Yeah, so for me, I have big change the world missions, right? So create peace in the Middle East, transform business from profit-driven to purpose-driven, create heaven on earth, stuff like that. These are the kind of missions I get from my sources.
Small ones.
Little things, yeah. And so I noticed that I was feeling compelled to do it, that I had to. But when I talk to people about purpose, I always say it's optional. You know, do it, don't do it. If it works for you, if you feel better doing it than not doing it, then doing it. Do it. If it makes your life worse, stop, don't do it. But I realized I didn't feel free to not do it. There was like a compulsion. I kind of played around with the feeling a bit, and I thought, oh, if I don't do it, then I like failed at life or something. If I die not having fulfilled my mission, F on the class.
Do it again.
Right? Yeah, redo. And I thought, okay, that sounds like a wounded drive, like I have to. And I went in, it was in my men's group actually, I went in poking around to find out where this came from, and I found a very young 4-year-old incident of being with my mother, being dragged through the streets of New York by her hand, and realizing that most of the things I was seeing, what the adults were doing, was purposeless. That they did not know what they were doing, and they did not know why they were doing it. Now, that's not a good thought for a 4-year-old. It's a good thought for a 16-year-old, but it's a bad thought for a 4-year-old. 4-year-olds are very dependent on the adults to have their act together. And that made me very uncomfortable. It's like, wow, this whole planet is being run by people who don't know what the hell they're doing, and I'm screwed. You know, in fact, we're all screwed. That young 4-year-old, which became a part, right, buried in my unconscious, waited for years to create the true purpose process and write a book and figure out how to find my purpose and everybody else's to fix the world. Took a little while. That was its strategy for solving the problem, which was a wound that happened to me when I was 4. And now I had to find everyone and everything's purpose to heal that wound. And when I realized that and worked with that young part and worked with that wound, suddenly my purpose became optional. So it's this.
It is a path of finding a purpose, you know.
Sure.
Of course, you know it.
Yeah.
People heal their wound from the past, and through that they lead others to heal their wounds.
Sure.
But what you say about it, that sometimes it's not from a free decision.
I had to. And so real freedom comes from real choice, which means I really get to say yes or no to any of the things in my life. My life, my marriage, my job, my purpose, whatever. Now, many of those things were carefully chosen and they're very good for me, and even if I had to choose them every day, I'd keep choosing them. But could I say no to them? In my own mind, am I allowed to not choose this or that or the other? If not, then I'm not free. And it's like the red pill and the blue pill in the Matrix, right? Which world do you want to live in? You know, but there's this way in which we keep making the same choices over and over again without realizing that we had a choice and without realizing that we were being forced in our choice by some young wounded part of ourselves, right? And that so much of the stuff that we're talking about is unconscious, right? Up here on the surface it all looks fine, except for this nagging feeling that there's something going on over there that I can't quite put my finger on. Other than that, right? But if you learn to go underneath and explore the unconscious, then you can find these old wounds, hidden beliefs, suppressed emotions, fears,
limiting
purpose, right? Abilities you never knew you had, all down in the unconscious, waiting for a chance to come out. Right? But our natural tendency is to want to keep things the same that they are, and so we keep all that stuff down. The bad stuff we keep down, it's still there, it just means we're not aware of it, so we can't change it.
And it probably they control a lot of decisions that we're not
Absolutely.
aware of.
Conservatively, the people who study this thing say that at least 90% of our decisions are made for unconscious reasons. The neurologists say it's much worse than that. They can watch the brain and how it works, and they can show the primitive parts of the brain trigger first before an action happens or a decision is made. And then the cerebral cortex, the logical, thoughtful, conscious part, triggers up to a half second later, which means the decision was already made, the action is already being taken, and now I'm having a thought about why. So actually, the logical part of the brain, its job isn't to make a decision, it's to come up with a logical explanation for the decision you already made. To make you think that you made the decision consciously. So this is why I found that, you know, purpose work is a form of shadow work, because the purpose is in the unconscious and we want to make it conscious. But I found that to heal these deep wounds, you really have to get into the unconscious and poke around and explore.
And it probably people find it, they encounter these voices when they try to make a change.
Yep.
When they decide to move away from their safe zone and they want to change something in their relationship or a new career or to find a purpose, they find all these voices pops up and want to hold down and don't go there. They want
start
to
arguing in your head.
And that's where the development is very, very important.
And that's just the ones you can hear. There's probably up to 10 times more that you can't hear, also having an opinion and participating in the decision.
So what is the practical tip that you can give to people that find themselves in right before a change or in the middle of it, or something is changing, and they find themselves overwhelmed with all these fears and voices?
Good. So the tricky part, I mean, there's you know, more extensive, deeper work that can be done with this, but the tricky part is that when it's time for a change, you'll simultaneously feel a powerful urge to move towards the change and powerful fear and resistance and skepticism holding you back at the same time. And that state is one that you feel caught in. And that feeling of being caught could stay that way for a very long time. It actually really slows down the change. Now, the impulse people have is do one of two things. Either, I'm not changing, everything's fine, right? Or, I need to power ahead and push past all these bad fears and limiting beliefs and do it anyway. I don't think either of those is a good choice. The trick is to turn towards the fears and say, okay, what are the things that are trying to keep me from changing? And what can I do about those things to make it okay to change? So maybe I'm afraid I'm not going to earn enough money or something. I need to have a job and everything's cool and I'm going to change, and then I'm thinking, oh my God, but I'm going to have to quit my job. Okay, well, actually, maybe I don't have to quit my job. Could I be willing to change and keep earning the money I need to earn to live? Whether I'm this guy or the changed version of this guy, do it either way. Would it be easier for me to change if I knew I wasn't going to rush off and quit my job right away? Which is actually really a bad idea to when in the midst of a transformational process.
And you don't know what to do next.
Quit your day job without a plan. Really bad idea. So that's actually a good commitment to make to yourself, right? Maybe you're worried it'll destroy your relationship. Sit down with your significant other and say, hey, honey, I'm going through a change. I'm a little nervous about it. I want to talk to you about what's happening. Here are your thoughts about it, right? Don't assume that your relationship is going to end. Get some support, right?
So look the fear in the eyes and
look the fear in the eyes. Deal with it directly and see if there's some way you can make commitments to yourself or to the people or problem solve or get support so that you don't let that fear come true and you can still go ahead and change it.
So for example, if I have a man in my men's group that is working high-tech for 12, 14 hours a day, he probably is a provider for the family, but is meaningless, passionless. He doesn't want to go there. He just goes there to bring the food home.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have any power or air to breathe to find what else he wants to do in his life. So what would you suggest for him to make this transformation? He doesn't know what's the next step.
Sure. So hopefully he can carve out, a day or two out of his life to find his purpose. The thing is that someone in that situation often will say, well, if I find my purpose, then I'll realize how unfulfilling my job is, and then I'll quit, and I won't be able to feed my family, and I have to feed my family, so I better not find my purpose. There's a really good analogy for this. It's when women always wonder why a guy never calls them after a good date, right? So the woman gives you her number, she's waiting, you don't call. What's going through the guy's mind? Wow, I really liked her, she was neat. Well, if I call her, that could turn into a relationship. A relationship could get serious. If the relationship gets serious, we might wind up getting married or something. It could get really serious. I don't think I'm ready to get married right now. I better not call her. It's the exact same process, right? You're thinking 10 steps too far ahead. It's like, no, you had a good date. Do you want another one? So it's the same thing. You want to find your purpose? Find your purpose. You don't have to change anything. Do you want to know? Now, if you know your purpose, then you can start to make more educated decisions and say, okay, how can I integrate this purpose into my job? This is the step everybody misses. I don't care what you're doing for a living. It's almost always possible to make your current job more purposeful, but you'd have to know what your purpose was in order to do that.
So give us an example.
That you can do right away. So for me, when I was working at Oracle Corporation, software development manager, right? What was my purpose? My purpose was showing people the way. Okay, now.
It comes with, ta-da.
Right, now how does a software development manager show people the way? What it eventually led to later, when I was ready and had a plan, was coaching and being a mentor, writing a book, giving public speaking. Now I get paid, what's today, Wednesday? On Friday, I'm going to be paid $10,000 by the head of a law firm to find her purpose. Great, right? But I was a software development manager.
Yeah, back there.
Okay. I did not get up and leave the job, right? How did I manifest my purpose in that situation? What I did, I really did, is I went to each of my employees and I said to them, hey, Joe, you're a great software developer, enjoy working with you. Let me tell you about a possible thing we could do together, and it's totally up to you. Right? You be Joe, okay? We'll role play here, okay? And here's what we're going to do. I can manage you to develop software and give you feedback and write reviews and all that kind of stuff, and that could be our relationship. Or if you want, no extra charge, right? You're getting paid to be here either way, I could help you set career goals and then work with you to ready yourself to achieve those goals using your current job. But this is not required. It's not part of my job description, and it's not part of yours to do this, only if you want to. Do you want to, Joe?
Sure.
Right? And that's what they said. Why wouldn't I want that, right? Presented optionally like that. Here, now my manager's going to help me advance my career. Let me think. Yes. All my employees said yes. And so I spent time helping them all set goals and defining what they wanted their career to look like, and then using their current job as a stepping stone to get to that. Is that showing people their path? Absolutely. Right? I didn't have a title on my door saying path shower. Doesn't matter. Right? That's what I spent a lot of my time. I got paid to do that at work.
And I know you work with organizations and help them find the purpose, and the employees find the purpose in the same
and
job.
The leaders. Yep.
Can you give an example, not of the managers, one of the employees that took an implement of that in his work? This program manager or
I'm trying to think of a specific person. I am thinking of one. Okay. It's interesting. So this particular company was an Israeli high-tech company. And I'm thinking of a particular woman who you know. I'm not going to tell you who it is. She found her individual purpose, and she participated in finding the company's purpose. And what happens when people do that, and at the time she was like, she was doing like customer support or something like that in the company. When people do that, when they find their own purpose and the company's purpose, the natural next step is to figure out how to do both at the same time. How do I make my job an expression of my purpose and the company's purpose? This makes a huge leap in performance in organizations that do this. When people get all that stuff lined up, they become exceedingly productive. So she helped that company grow 1,200% in the next 3 years after that company found its purpose. And she actually started doing similar work for other organizations and eventually set out on her own. A lot of the other people who were doing roles for the company stayed and are still doing those same purposeful roles for that company. But actually that purpose became a new career for her, not right away. But after she'd been doing her purpose for that company for a while, she realized, I can do it for them and others. Right?
So at the beginning, at first she didn't change the job. What did she change?
Well, she did change it a little bit, and this is the thing I recommend to people, is what you do is, after you find your purpose, it takes a little bit of courage, you go to your boss and say, well, I found my purpose, this is what it is. Now, it depends on the boss. Most bosses would be fine with this. I found my purpose, this is what it is. I'd like to talk with you about how to make my job more aligned with my purpose. I'd like to do a little more of this and a little less of that. It would be okay if I did this too. So you're just tweaking the job description. And what the company gets, it sounds selfish, but it's really not. What the company gets out of that is if you're doing a job that's more aligned with your purpose, you're better at it, you're more excited, you're more fulfilled, and you're generating more value for the company. So intelligent managers are very interested in having that conversation. Even if they're not familiar with it, it makes a certain amount of basic sense to people. Now, if your boss is like a really horrible person who throws chairs at people, maybe you don't want to have that conversation, but there are very few of those these days, right? Most managers are reasonable human beings, and you're trying to enroll them in doing something that's for your benefit and the benefit of the company. And most of them will at least listen, and usually they have some latitude to make minor changes in your job description. So this is all, and some of those changes you can do within your current job description without asking anyone's permission at all. Just in a question of which aspects of your job you focus on more. You just go ahead and do it, you know. So that's something anyone can do in almost any job with almost any purpose. They just usually imagine that they have to leave their job to do their purpose. And I'm like, no, not so fast. Not so fast.
And the next barrier is, if I find my purpose, I will have to change the work, and it must give me the money back home.
Well, and it must, right? If you have rent to pay or mortgage to pay, kids going to school, whatever, absolutely.
But there is a path or a period of time that you go through your purpose, and you're gonna have to make a living out of it.
So yes, if you don't quit your day job, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you keep doing the thing that generates money and you do your purpose on the side initially. Some people leave it that way.
Mm-hmm.
That really works for them. If they make a lot of money at their job, they like their work, it's not super purposeful, but it gives them the time and the resources to go do their purpose in some other area of their life. And for some people that is like, they're so happy.
Mm-hmm.
Other people, they become unfulfilled doing the work only for money and not doing their purpose. And for them, it now becomes a project. When I say project, I mean usually a couple of years. If you try to rush this, you can really make a balagan, a mess out of things. So it works to think about, how do I evolve the work I already have to make it more purposeful? And if I were to do something else that's much more purposeful, what would that be? How do I prepare and train myself to do that? And what do I need to have in place so I can transition from this to that without messing things up?
That worked for me.
Yeah.
For almost 16 years, I worked half-day job,
Yep.
which is very connected to my mission back there. My heart was there, my passion was there, and I was developing my purpose slowly for many years. Until I got to this point, which is my heart wasn't there anymore, and this was like very huge passion for me.
Yeah.
And then I made the quantum leap, leap of faith,
Yeah.
and went back older.
In retrospect, I'd say a couple times I did the leap a little too quickly.
Mhm.
And if I had to do it over again, I'd do it a little more slowly, a little more planning. And that's what I recommend to people.
Great. So let's sum it up.
Absolutely. In summary, you can live a happier, more fulfilling life. When you find it, don't quit your day job right away.
And look to your fears in your eyes.
That's right.
And do this inner work. It's critical.
That's right. And lurking in your unconscious are things that are making decisions that you know nothing about, running your life. And it would be useful to go digging around there and find them and heal them.
And remember, it's fun.
Yeah. It's a sport.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Always a pleasure.